Welcome to Paley Front Row, part of the Paley at Home series presented by Citi.
I would love to welcome the executive producer and cast of Queer as Folk onto the stage. We have Jaclyn Moore, Devin Way. You're not Jaclyn Moore, Devin Way, Finn Argus, Jesse James Keitel, Johnny Sibilly, CG, and Armand Fields. Nice and cozy. We did that really orderly.
That was the best way to do it.
That was very queer of us. It's very like, ask an NYU grad to sit in a chair kind of me.
But heels on carpet is homophobic.
I agree. Honestly. So as you can tell, we are not joined today by Stephen Dunn, the creator, but he sent us a little message for the audience that I think they're going to queue up right now.
Hey everyone, I'm sorry I can't be there with you right now to celebrate the release of Queer as Folk. I have COVID in my hotel room, which, is fucking amazing timing. But, as Denzel Washington always says, when you're at your highest point, that's when the devil comes for you. So it all seems very fitting. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you everyone for coming. Queer as Folk has been such a labor of love. This entire team has poured their hearts and souls into it. It's been 5 years coming, and I'm so excited to finally share it with the world. It comes from a very personal place for us, I hope you enjoy the show.
We miss you. Oh, you are missed, Stephen. We had a little key backstage, and we had a little champagne, and we were talking about what we want to talk about, what we don't want to talk about, etc. So I feel like the best question to start with is, what does pride mean? No, I'm just kidding. In case that's not funny to you, that is the joke that is the beginning of every single panel that happens in June in the history of June.
Which is the only time we're legally allowed to talk about being gay or trans.
Yes.
I don't know if anybody's told you that, but that's enjoy these 30 days.
Yes, because we're not on that gay stuff anymore after.
July's America's month.
But I will say, we're already unraveling. When it comes to the month of June, a lot of queer and trans people feel a type of way about it. But I think, despite it all, it is so amazing to watch y'all make something that is so radically queer. And when I say queer, I actually mean queer, because there are a lot of things that are made for mainstream media that are we're queer. And I'm like, you're in head to toe J. Crew. There's just no way that's true. So I would love to hear from all y'all, what did it mean to any of you, each of you, and we can popcorn or we can go in order, to make a queer project right now or anytime?
I will say that I feel like so often queer people were expected to be the best friend in something at this point. If a rom-com movie star of the 90s is in it, her best friend is gonna be gay or trans. Mm-hmm. And they're gonna have some great lines, and no shade, because we love all those people and they should get checks. Mm-hmm. But the movie's gonna follow whoever follow mostly a straight person out of the room. Mm-hmm. And we are left to be funny and charming for a moment. Or when we are occasionally given center stage, which is rare, we are often asked to just be saintly and
model citizens.
Yes, model citizens and martyrs underneath an oppressive world. And we are in an oppressive world. To be queer, trans in 2022 America is not the greatest thing in the world. But to us, I think, or to me, I should say, I don't want to speak for these people, they could disagree with me very much, but it was important to me, and I know it was important to Stephen, to make something that showed queer people and trans people be complicated and messy and flawed, and to lie to their partners, and to do drugs when they shouldn't, and to do people that look like the people that all of us know, or some of us are, and say that even if we're messy, even if we're complicated, we're still worthy. I mean, we allow complications for cis straight characters always. How many Don Drapers are there? How many Walter Whites? How many, Nurse Jackies? Or, you can go down the list of any major TV show of the last 20 years. There's usually a straight person with problems at the top of it. This is a show for about queer people with problems, and despite those problems, that we're still worthy of holding the center of the frame. So that's what making something queer was about to us.
Nurse Jackie is such a deep cut.
Nurse Jackie, I rewatched it during quarantine, and
it's a quarantine watch.
It kind of goes in if you go in with like quarantine vibes.
Okay, got it.
I mean, for me, making something queer was that like I knew that I could be as black as I want to be, or as outspoken as I want to be. I can be complicated, I can get ugly with it, you know what I mean? And I can get cute with it, you know what I'm saying? It's like I can live in these like back and forth, I mean, getting to play a drag queen on TV, it can easily go camp. But Bussy is not a caricature. Like, she is just a real, authentic ass bitch, And I love that about her. And I love that, like, as the season progresses, you get to learn more about her. And I'm not just there to provide, like, the quippy one-liners, you know what I'm saying? Or be the sassy voice of reason, And so it's just like, yeah, to make a queer show, it means, like, to show something that's authentic to who I am.
And it's also to show everyone watching that this is who you are as well. That this is not just about these characters, this is about people that are in the community, and even people outside of the community, even cisgender heterosexual people, they can see these characters and be like, I'm a Ruthie, I'm a Bussy, I'm a Brody. And it's not always about building bridges, because you have to meet halfway when you do that, but it is to say that these characters are all of us, just like the characters we grew up watching and loving weren't exactly like us, but they had pieces of who we were in them.
Mm-hmm. Thinking about the cis heterosexual brethren, they're in a time of crisis right now. Like, really, they need our support. We're sorry for y'all. Anybody else?
Well, I mean, I think I can only speak for myself, but I think a lot of us, this show and this experience happened at a really integral time in our lives, when we're all at either a crossroads with our identity, or coming into ourselves in a way we hadn't been able to before. And so being able to be part of a show that is queer front and back, it's from top and bottom. Our show is very verse. Is it? But being able to, not be the only person in the room who's queer. It allowed me the space to not police my own femininity. I wasn't constantly at odds with myself and the people I was in a room with. There was no learning curve, and even from the perspective of the writers and the creators and the directors and the department heads and the producers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's queerness is imbued in the fabric of the show. Literally, like, the fabric is really fucking gay. And it's it allowed a freedom for us to explore not just these characters and the script and experience, but ourselves. And I think all of us can say we left New Orleans better than we arrived.
Some of us didn't leave New Orleans.
And some of us didn't leave. This is the truth there.
Seriously.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, just a cherry on top, what you just said, you used the word freedom, and I feel like liberation is at the forefront of just everyone's time here, is how to be, how to feel, how to get towards that liberation that is literally craved for. And I feel like we got to fuck with that here, on screen and off.
Period.
Liberated, baby.
I actually want to get into that a little bit. It's a really special thing to be a part of something that we're in, like, any room you walk into, it's like predominantly, if not exclusively, queer and trans people. That kind of has like a psychosocially like safe effect on, you know, how you make the show or how you live your everyday life. I'm just curious if any of you experienced a growth of some kind, or if there was something that you learned about yourself along the line of the show.
Yeah, I experienced a growth, but my doctor said it's benign, so it's
Wow.
We got jokes, man.
Yeah. She saw it coming and hit it out.
But no, really, I was gonna say earlier, I changed so much, and I've been working as an actor since I was like 12 years old.
Flex.
And
Must be nice.
but I mean, it did something weird to me where I was constantly getting, I was getting monetarily compensated for playing this straight boy, for like playing this like boy next door type character, which I am not a boy. So I was in drag for like my whole life, and it was a really weird thing. Yeah, it was a weird feeling to come onto this set and feel like for the first time that I had the space to explore who I was. And I was already doing that on my own time, but you know, it's tough when you go into a work environment that's predominantly cis, straight. It just adds a layer of complication and being out loud, which I was doing anyway, but it's just like, you know, you don't know when you're entirely safe. You don't know when you could lose a job because of how queer you are, you know, explicitly queer. And that's, you know, I mean, I can't say for certain that that's happened to me, but I would guess that that has contributed to, you know, certain jobs that maybe I lost or was cast in and then they rewrote it, you know? So who knows? But this was the first time where I was in a show where I felt like my queerness wasn't only accepted or tolerated, it was encouraged and embraced. And it also lent itself to the work. And I felt myself break wide open, especially with the drag of it all. I really found my gender, and I was surrounded by so many talented queer folks. I never thought I'd be in that type of environment in my entire life. So I'm just so grateful. Changed my life.
Oh, amazing. Oh. Yeah, similarly to Finn, you know, I've been acting since I was 12, acting straight. There was this joke made right when we wrapped it. When I got to the show, I was straight, you know, and I'd never grown up in a queer space. I didn't know any of the quippy queer sayings or who drag queens were, but you know, I was meeting them in real time, and I kind of came out with the show. And so there's one of my favorite quotes is, the greatest risk we'll ever take is by far to stand in the light and be seen as we are, right? And so when you grow up feeling like not conscious, but like your fight or flight is constantly on, right? I think what happened is when I got on set, when I was around these beautiful people of all different colors and shades and gender identities who were feeling safe enough to come out of their little turtle shells and explore who they were, you know, it was so cool because I didn't know that I had been in fight or flight. I didn't know that I had been covering up my queerness, you know, and it was funny because I talked to Jesse right before we went to set, and we're like, what do we want for this show? What do we want for the environment and when people watch it? But when we're filming it, how do we want people to feel? And the thing we were both the most excited about was just the community we were gonna build on set and how to make the environment as safe as possible. And so I was so excited that I was actually getting to benefit from the safety and going, oh wait, my queerness is enough. Like your queerness is enough. You know, we are all enough. And I really hope that as y'all watch that show, you saw yourself reflected in some way or fashion to know that like, whoever you are, wherever you are, like you're enough and you're here and we got you, you know?
We got you. Yeah, I also want to point out that like, we felt very safe on set, but this should not stop here. There was one point in filming that happened with Jesse when I was in the room, and it was another actor who was non-binary that was working on another show, and they came and they were part of our show, and we were having, you know, chit-chat between takes, And they were saying how unsafe they felt in their other, being misgendered all the time, even, after they corrected and they took it up the ranks as you do in the corporate environment, and they still felt as though they were being disrespected. And Jesse took them aside and gave them the number for GLAAD of Nick Adams to have a conversation about how to make that space safer for them, because this is not normal. This is not every actor's journey, and especially queer actors, Black actors, Latinx, any minority that steps on a set that is not catered to them has to walk in with broad shoulders to understand that we are taking up space whether you like it or not. And I think that going forward and with whatever project we work on, we can go into the room knowing that we have been told you are worthy, and we can then pass that on to whoever else we work with, whether they are queer or not.
Well, and truly, it's, I don't know, I get, and I feel this about our show, what I love so much about it is when you introduce a queer character into a non-queer space or any minority, that production, that company, that role, whatever, is capitalizing on your queerness. So if they are also not respecting you, that is inappropriate. And so to be
Speaking of June,
to be in a space where not only, yes, the show is about queer people, but it's made by queer people, and so there's this level of respect from within the pages of what we're making.
Yeah.
I think too, it's like, I was thinking how I had the thought that like, oh, we're spoiled in that sense, that we get to be honored and be seen. But it's like, no, that should not be a spoil, like, that should be expected, right? But it's not, unfortunately, and this was a rare occasion. And I too, like, Sven and Devin was saying, I came in identifying as non-binary, but as like I got to explore and just kind of be and live, it's like I'm like trans femme more, and like being able to like tap into that, and like incorporating she, her pronouns into my they, them pronouns, and like to be in a space where I feel seen and supported to do that is.
Yeah. Peacock said trans rights.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that logo.
when they let us underline the cock, that was the moment.
Yes.
That was the moment.
It really shouldn't have to be, though, like, totally exceptional that you all had that experience, and yet it is. One of the standout lines, at least that we watched tonight, was trans and toxic. It's called intersectionality.
It could be trans and toxic. It's called intersectionality, bitch.
Yeah.
Put a quarter in there.
And that to me, I think, is such a, we're kind of getting at this already, but like, I feel like that is such a true part of like the ethos of the show. Is like, in a lot of previous iterations, we get to be lovers and heroes and like upstanding citizens and all the things, but like also we get to be pieces of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like that is something that this show really revels in and finds joy and humanity in. So I'm just curious as to how y'all, I guess I'll start with you, Jaclyn. Like, queer messiness is so your zhuzh. Why? And I don't mean your personal zhuzh, but
It's your personal zhuzh.
Yeah, okay, I mean, if we want to say that too. Why was it important to you to have the reality of these characters portrayed?
Yeah, I mean, partially because it is my personal zhuzh. No, I think that complexity is so beautiful. I don't know any people, period, that aren't kind of messy. And certainly being in queer and trans spaces, what's interesting is like, this, you were saying upstairs, like what are the things we haven't talked about in all the things? I haven't talked about this. One of the magic parts of being trans is that you get to see gender and experience from both sides. On my Joni Mitchell shit, from both sides now. And
play the track.
But yes, cute. But no, you get to see it from both sides, and you get to experience the grace that is given to cis-presenting white men, or I got to, I should say, experience that. Even though I was queer identified, even though I would talk about how I was a sex worker for a long time and like own that as part of my identity, like all those things, like none of that really mattered, because at the end of the day, people saw like, oh, that's like a tall white guy walking in the room, like whatever, I know those. And they would, let me write all sorts of things and tell all sorts of stories. I worked on Dear White People for 4 years, and I was honored to, and I was the only white writer in that room, but I was, invited into that space by Justin Simeon, and nobody at Netflix was like, that's weird that we have a white writer in that room. Since then, since I've transitioned, I'm only given trans projects. Nobody wants to hire me for anything that there's not a trans person involved with. I'll get offers sometimes and I'll read them and I'll be like, oh, this is exciting. It's like a murder mystery and it's whatever. And somebody will be like, she's trans. And I'm like, no, I didn't say, okay. And so if that's how the world is going to be brought to us, right? I think all we can do then is tell our stories as honestly and openly. If that's the avenue with which I get to tell stories, then I want to tell those stories super honestly and super earnestly. And my honest life, my earnest life is that, sometimes I'm a messy bitch. Jessie is sometimes a messy bitch.
Sometimes.
Okay, and sometimes I'm toxic.
And sometimes, no, it's...
Play the track, Brittany.
Yeah. I know, so yeah. I don't know.
Any other thoughts on queer messiness? Or just like what it means to portray a queer character that has flaws?
It's refreshing.
It's refreshing, and it also, for my character specifically with the drug use, I feel like it's, chemsex is a big thing in the queer community, and it is something a lot of times you'll be at a party and people are like, meth, and they'll talk about it in this way that kind of takes out the humanity of the people going through and suffering through addiction. And for me, Noah, my character is, from the outside, he's got a great job, he's got a nice house, but on the inside, he's dealing with the trauma of whatever he's gone through in his life in ways that are not conducive to him or his community. So I think it's really important that while they're messy, it's also good to look at these characters from an empathetic point of view and to say, even though you are going through that dramatic time with drugs, that you are still worthy of love and deserving of a story to be told and deserving of not being cast off just because you have gone on, into a dark road. And I think that's something that, because there's not a lot of queer storytelling, we don't get to unpack the truth of behind why queer people turn to certain things dependent on, the victimization we've experienced from society.
And you know what I find refreshing about it? It came to me as you were speaking. We are playing queer characters who their queerness is not part of their messiness. They are queer people, and they're messy.
Yeah.
And it's and I always go back to it's written and directed and created from a place it informed by their queerness, not defined by it. And through that we get to tell really authentic, really organic storytelling, like what Johnny was saying. It's the mess that brings all the good.
Imagine if you had to take a shot every time we said queer.
Well, here on Queer as well.
You would all be blitzed. So I feel like drag is like a kind of stronghold of the show, and even though everyone didn't see here tonight, there's more drag that happens, spoiler alert. I'd love to ask Armand and Finn about your relationship to drag in and outside of the show.
Yes, well, I have a drag persona named Cleopocalypse. She is a title holder.
Yes, she is.
But it was, drag introduced a new hustle to just like my overall just creative process. And, getting to do drag like 4 to 5 times a week in Chicago and just like going up and down Boys Town with my little luggage and just like in and out of basements, like it was just like that sort of tenacity and that like just inertia, I feel like it informed my acting and just being able to like step into this role with my theater training, but then also be taking my drag training and like getting to play this role of Bussy and like, and now, with the TV show, it's like I have all of these like drag numbers in my mind that I'm like, production value, yes, like we can do this now, But also too is just like this, getting to play this role is just an example of like another option for the girls. You know what I'm saying? I look at my local girls, and I love my local girls who have made names for themselves without the help of like a TV show or something. You know what I'm saying? So getting to do this role is just like hopefully inspires like other girls to just like go out there, fuck it up, and there's other like avenues for you. You know, so
It work.
Yeah, so I did drag in the show. Thanks. So, it was really fun. I had never done drag before, and I was really nervous because, obviously drag is a serious art form, and I was like, how am I gonna like live up to the expectation that this production has and like the drag community has, because I'm essentially representing the drag community, and I've since like become a part of it, and I do drag on my own time now, oscillating between two names, Pig Milk and Jizzy Lizzy.
Jizzy Lizzy.
Down for them both.
But yeah, no, it was really fun. I love drag. I watched the show We're Here, and it's
such a good show.
Yeah, it's so fucking good, and I feel like that really highlights the heart and soul of drag, and it's like. It's liberation in relation to gender, but also more than that. It's just like figuring out a way to express yourself to the nth degree, and that's a liberating thing. Like for anyone, however you express yourself through drag, whether you're drag king, queen, or something in between, it's just a way to tap into like the deepest parts of yourself. It's a really vulnerable thing, which is funny because you're putting on a bunch of makeup and like so many clothes, and like you're covering yourself, but it really feels like this manifestation of what you have on the inside. And I didn't realize that, prior to booking the show, and then I took a deep dive, and I'm just absolutely in love with the art form of drag. And being able to do it on the show, especially, it was different than what I thought drag was. I'd seen Drag Race, and I also watched the fuck out of that show too. But
anyone heard of it?
It's sort of niche, but I had a limited scope of what drag was. So going into it, I thought I was going to be in like I thought I was just going to be in like a full like pageant girl glam look. I didn't actually know what the drag world was outside of that because I hadn't done my research, which was silly on my part. But yeah, I mean, I love it. And Ryan Heffington was our choreographer for the drag numbers, and he's a genius, made all of the numbers super organic and fun and expressive. And in some of the later episodes, I love the first episode's drag number, but like, let's face it, Chicky's a booger. And it elevates, and I'm really excited for y'all to see the rest of it.
So CG, without giving spoilers, yours and Kim Cattrall's character develop a connection as all of the characters start to coalesce. What was it like to work with her, or what was it like to watch your characters kind of grow?
I mean, it was a very refreshing scene to be a part of, both on and off screen, because you come in and you hear the name Kim Cattrall and you're like, oh, Kim Cattrall. But then it's like, no, I got to work with this person, so I can't see the Kim Cattrall. I just got to see the person that's in front of me so I can work with the person that's in front of me and like remain open to them and have them be open to me. So in that way, it was mad refreshing and cool to see her in a light that, I haven't seen her in before. This is not like anything she's ever been a part of. And I feel like as far as branching out and finding a new, it was really, it was wise to be a part of. I don't know if that's the right word, but like it was really just nice to see her in a refreshing light, in a new light, in the light that she carries, Mm-hmm. And also, in regards to the two characters, they're two they're an unlikely pair in a very different way than Jesse and CG are an unlikely pair, if that makes sense. Like they really come from each other from a place of, I need a little bit of help. And I'm gonna tell you that I need a little bit of help, or I'm gonna like sit next to you and exude that I need a little bit of help. So it was just it was a new kind of help along.
Okay, I'm gonna, I think maybe ask 2 more questions. And I would be remiss to not ask about the sex. I'm sorry, because Queer as Folk, the original, was really grounded in a kind of sex positivity, and obviously that was a lot of our connections to the show. But I loved that this show like really leaned into what is a new age of queer sex.
I mean, listen, filming the sex scenes on this show, it was because it was such a safe environment that allowed me the freedom to say like, yeah, fuck it, this is the right scene, the right show, the right role, the right time to say, fuck it, let's do it. It was like empathetic storytelling that looking back, I'm so fucking proud of. It's sexy, it's beautiful, and it's emotional, and it felt like that in the moment. You know, I got very emotional after filming that sex scene at the end of 2. I sobbed uncontrollably for about an hour. And it wasn't because like, oh my God, I was just naked on TV. Like, what am I doing? Like in a room full of people. It's like, it was releasing this profound, it was an act of radical self-love, being able to have no shame about my body as a trans woman, because in reality, I don't have shame about it, but I'm told I should. Mm-hmm. And being in a place to say like, you know what, I'm gonna get railed and show the world. It was hard. It was hard to do that. And if there's any legacy from the show, there's gonna be a lot of legacy of this show. There's gonna be a lot of legacy from this show, and I can't wait for you all to see the rest of it. It's a moment, but that one particular moment is something I will take to my grave as being immensely proud of.
And that was a moment that I have to like, so often on these things, you have people who are like, and working with the network was just a delight. They were such great partners. And then you like, at home, you're like, really? Like, I don't know, I've worked with some networks. But I have to say, in this case, we were geared up for a fight because Standards and Practices had initially told us that we couldn't show your body in that way, in that scene. And we had a meeting about it because there were just rules, whatever. And we had a meeting about it, and we talked to Peacock about, their name's Peacock. I mean, every time it's like, so we went to the meeting at Peacock, but no, and we basically made the case that it, like beyond everything Jesse said, that it's cathartic, it's an emotional moment, it's not exploitative, it's like this beautiful moment. And it's the thing that we kept saying was like, this is a position that this network and many other networks have shown cis women in 1 million times. And the only difference here is that she's trans. And, you know, and to Peacock's credit, they really did, from that meeting on, there was no more discussion. It was like, if y'all want to do it, if Jesse feels comfortable and safe, which was obviously the other part of this that was important, and like vitally so, like they had our back and really let us run with it. And I, as much as I usually roll my eyes when people are like, you know, the network was so wonderful. Like I have worked with a lot of places, and I don't know many places that would have one meeting about that and just be like, yeah, good point, go for it. And they did.
I lied, I said 2 more questions, but now I'm actually 2 more questions because I have a question for Armand. New Orleans is like another character in the show.
Yes.
And I just want to know, like, what do you hope people take away from the show about how New Orleans lives and thrives? Because it's a very specific place, and if you've never been there, you've never been there. Mm-hmm.
True. You know, it was funny going in because I had visited New Orleans once as a teenager, and I was with family, so it's like I really didn't get to experience it. But going to do this, you know, it is just a place where, you know, I can't speak for everyone's experience, but it was a place where I felt seen. And I hadn't felt seen in a long time. Seen particularly by other Black people, because I feel like sometimes I try to mask up M-A-S-C, you know, when I'm around, you know, Black people, and that's just my own thing. But to be in a place like New Orleans where everyone is celebrated, everyone is welcomed, you know what I mean? And it's just like, and people are applauded on the street, you know what I'm saying, for a look. If they're serving a look, no one cares, you know what I mean? They'll be like, yes, wear those heels or wear that dress, you know? And that's what I've experienced. And I also got to like experience the second line when I first got there, and that was incredible. And the food is incredible, and the music is incredible. And CG and I go eat crawfish a lot. And it's just, I don't know, I love that city, and you know, CG is from there, and I think CG could add more to that than I did. Please.
I mean, you did a very chef's kiss job of it. But what I will say is that New Orleans it's a very particular, multi-spirited kind of place. And though people can feel welcomed and, you know, shed light upon, that place is a place that will spit you up and chew you out and let you get out at the same time. And the fact that that place, New Orleans, did not do that to us is a testament, because, you know, we could be up here with completely different experiences of what New Orleans had to offer for them. And while they were welcomed and loved and held within that city, other people don't have that same experience all the time. And so, you know, it's a testament to them, it's a testament to us, it's a testament to the city of just what they have and we have to offer. And I mean, we up here and we scratching the surface continuously to what our queer community has to offer, because there's a lot more, and we are up here as the lot more right now. And period, yeah.
I have to say, I should have said it earlier, but you brought it up. The drag scene in New Orleans is insane. We were talking about it earlier. It's like the best drag in the country that I've ever witnessed. And it's just... well, okay,
Chicago drag, right? You know,
right here.
But I think it's just so cool. Like, it's edgy, it's honest, it's raw, and we got to showcase a lot of the queens that actually are from New Orleans and make up the queer community and hold it together, you know? So like Vis Queen, Debbie with the D, like Laveau Contraire, you see right when you enter Babylon, she's the queen that you see on stage. She's like the drag mother of
They're all hosting a screening in New Orleans this week if you want to go.
Yeah, buy your tickets now. But anyway, I just want to give them a shout out because they made this show possible.
Absolutely incredible.
They make the queer community in New Orleans possible.
My last question for all y'all. I, have been making queer stuff for the mainstream for like over a decade. And so I know that it's extremely difficult to do that, first of all, to get it greenlit and funded and all that stuff. But it's even more difficult to put it out into the audience and wait for their reactions. And I feel like, not specific to the show, anything that you make that has an LGBTQ kind of beating heart to it will inevitably be very criticized, whatever those criticisms might be. Intracommunal criticism is kind of what I'm alluding to. So I would just love to hear from any of y'all, like, what would you say to address or prove those people kind of wrong about what they think they know about the show? Or how would you what would you want people to take away? What would, if anything, what would you want them to take away?
I would say that
we're like ready.
I would say that, like, if they aren't,
let's fight. No.
If they aren't totally, before we finish too, I do want to say, Fran did an amazing job working as a consultant on the show too, and I want to make sure they get their flowers too. But I would say that if they're unhappy with any aspect of the show, or they think their story hasn't been told yet, or any of that stuff, first I would say that we haven't told every queer story that we want to tell in the show yet. There are so many that we want to tell, and we hope to get more seasons in the future to tell more stories. It's a ensemble; those tend to grow as seasons progress, and so you want to tell more and more stories. But yeah, I would also say that we want everyone to be able to tell their stories. We want more queer stories, not fewer. And I don't know, I would ask them to try to look with the grace that we give to, how many things that are made for straight people do queer people love because an aging diva is in it and there's no questions asked. You know what I mean? I'm coming for you. No, I love, but it's I would ask give queer creators the same grace that we give, straight folks and the, people that other people get to tell stories.
Yeah, when you criticize, it kills, And so, like, if the forefront from the people that it was made for is just criticism, then it kills all opportunities from the people funding it, which right now are the cis, white, straight people, And so if I think, we saw this happen with In the Heights, like it was something that was created by a community for a specific community, and one part of the community didn't feel celebrated by it, and it completely, now they're like, we're never doing that again, squash, but it represented so many people, right? And what would have happened if that would have been celebrated? Then green light, now all these other people, there's projects now get to be celebrated.
We actually deserve to try something that might not be perfect.
Yeah.
And that actually is not something that we're always afforded to do.
And we should also, because we shouldn't be above critique. Queer,
absolutely.
Queer. Some of the best, in the AIDS epidemic, we lost so many good critics of Broadway, of film that just went away. And we can't be too precious to take a critique. But on the other side of that token, like we're all saying, in order to have more queer media, we have to support queer media. And I'm just happy to be living in a time where we have, in one summer, Fire Island, Queer as Folk, Bros, Billy Eichner's movie, to be, and it's not like we don't feel like we're in a competition. We're going to each other's screenings, we're posting about each other's projects, because that's how we move forward to greenlight other people's projects. I'm sure there's people in this room that are trying to get projects greenlit, and they deserve those stories to be told as well. But the chicken before the egg, blah 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 blah. But yeah, we're not above critique, but we are wanting for people to appreciate what we're doing.
What I find genuinely deeply frustrating is that it often feels representation falls on the shoulders of queer media, when it's like queer people are so used to not seeing themselves accurately, honestly reflected. So when a project comes out like Queer as Folk, and they, before it comes out, are scared that they're not going to be reflected, that their experience will be voided from it. That same bar, that same level of expectation is not, non-queer media is not held to that same standard. We don't look at a show and say there's not a redhead in this, or we don't look at a show and say there's, I don't see myself here, you just watch another show. But for queer people, this is their home. This is their opportunity to come home and find themselves in characters like ours. And like Jaclyn said before, I hope we get many, many opportunities to tell more stories. There's so many more stories to tell, and there's no one way any one project could ever represent every part of the community. It truly is the LGBTQIA+ community, and it is an endless array of people and experiences within that. Criticism is welcomed, but hold off, wait until you see it.
Well,
I think it's a cute show.
I will say, criticism is good and it can be constructive. So yes, and give us the opportunity to tell more stories. And I'm excited that we get to start with this. And I feel like it's going to send waves through the media space that will allow more queer stories to be told. And I'm really excited about that because our show can't represent every single queer story. And that's okay. But we are telling a lot, and we're telling them in a nuanced way, and I'm really excited for the world to see that, and then hopefully see a ton more of it after because of what the show is doing.
And look at the original shows, when what followed. I mean, immediately after Queer as Folk came The L Word. Came Noah's Ark, came Looking, came Pose, came et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like Queer as Folk's origin story is giving birth to other queer shows. And we are able to tell these stories because of what was done 25 years ago, whatever it was.
I just remember one, comment that I had read, and someone was like, "It looks too woke for me."
Yes, oh my God.
Oh my God, examine that.
And I was just like, you bitch can stay asleep, but. But I just want people to be able to watch a show and be able to relate to the characters. Like Jesse was saying, how the messiness is not because of our queerness, but it can identify with the messiness of it and be like, I never thought that I could be connected to, you know, a Black non-binary person is who I am, but it's just like what they're going through is very similar to what I've been through, and you know, and so I'm just hoping that people walk away from this seeing a little bit more of themselves, seeing themselves reflected. And I know that sounds cheesy and trite, but it's just like when you do that, you feel seen and you don't feel so alone in this world. And I think that's what I really want people to walk away from is like, you know, you aren't alone, you know.
As Madonna said, if you keep putting it in their face, they will have to contend with it. The Queen.
Queen Mother, yes.
This is a plug. I mean, we're up here, the posters of Queer as Folk with our kaleidoscopic faces on it says shattering expectations, yeah? And, you know, as a Black queer person, as a Black Native queer person, as a Black Native queer person of New Orleans, et cetera, you have all these labels and expectations to live by or not live by. This word messy that we're throwing around and actually, like, you know, living in, I just feel like all those expectations that are placed upon you can dissipate. Like, maybe that is one thing that I hope people can watch this show and take from it, is that what others outside of you have expected of you is not what you have to expect of you. Yes. And it's not your expectation. So to be able to throw that shit away and go about your day is I don't know, it's one of those it's one of the things that would be cool to get taken away from viewing this here.
Well, I think that's we're over time now, so I guess we'll conclude the panel.